Over the past couple of months, I've been talking quite a bit about The Outer Worlds. This is an up-and-coming RPG from Obsidian Entertainment, the people that worked on Fallout New Vegas, and specifically the game directors on this one originally created the Fallout franchise. With that in mind, a lot of people were really excited for this. The trailer for this dropped right around when the Fallout 76 Backlash was at its peak, so people really took it as an outlet to celebrate. They were praising this game as a true successor to Fallout, and even though later on Obsidian came out and said they weren't a huge fan of that they would prefer people would praise their game just as it stands and not in spite of Fallout 76. Overall, around The Outer Worlds, it's been pretty smooth sailing. All the information we have seen thus far has gone over pretty positively, and people seem to be pretty hyped for this, even though it's a smaller scale game. Well, that'll change today, as we did get the announcement that The Outer Worlds will be a one-year exclusive on the Epic Games Store. There's been a massive backlash to this, and in this video, I'm going to talk about all of that, exactly what's going on in regards to that, and give you some context as to why people are so mad, so you could hopefully come to your own conclusions. This news came earlier today after a presentation around the Epic Games Store. This was during GDC, which is ongoing right now, and in fact they announced some stats and figures around the store itself, such as how they actually have over 80 million accounts now on the store. But even further, they also announced a bunch of new exclusives that were on the way. One of the new ones on this list, of course, being The Outer Worlds. This was later confirmed by The Outer Worlds official Twitter account, where they do say, our partners at Epic Games have announced that The Outer Worlds will be coming to the Epic Games Store at launch, alongside the Windows Store. It will be released on other digital platforms 12 months later. The Outer Worlds will still release on Xbox and PS4 at launch. So of course, from that, it really clarifies the situation. I think a lot of people might just read headlines and miss some of those details. So first and foremost, if you are on consoles, this does not affect you at all. You can still buy The Outer Worlds from your typical PlayStation store and your typical Xbox store, or go in person and actually buy a physical copy. They have confirmed in the past that this game will have physical copies. But on the flip side, if you are on PC, then things have changed. As of right now, we know The Outer Worlds is coming out at some point in 2019, and that 2019 release date is only for the Windows Store and the Epic Games Store. And then 12 months after that release date, it will release on Steam. As of right now, you can find the game with a listing on Steam, although the release date has been changed to 2020. While also a store page has gone up on the Epic Games Store. At the time of filming this and searching on the Windows Store, I still couldn't find a store page listing. So if you really did only want to play this game on Steam, you still will be able to do so. It'll just be 1 year after it comes out. But outside of that, why is this going on? Why are we seeing this game only coming out on the Microsoft Store and the Epic Games Store? Well, the Microsoft Store has an easy explanation. A few months ago, we did get the news that Obsidian Entertainment, the developer behind The Outer Worlds, was actually purchased by Microsoft. So Microsoft being the parent company, it makes sense that it would still appear on the Microsoft Store, their official storefront on PC. The Epic Games Store is actually a little bit different. It seems like this decision was likely made at a publisher level, not a developer level, although we can't possibly confirm whether or not the developer, Obsidian Entertainment, was for or against this decision. They haven't made any statements as to that right now, and it's likely something we don't find out anytime soon. The publisher of The Outer Worlds is actually Private Division. This is a fairly new publisher that only has a few games under their belt. Private Division is actually a subsidiary of 2K Entertainment, which is a much larger company that you probably have seen the games of. Two of the up-and-coming games from Private Division, like the only two up-and-coming games from Private Division, were confirmed to be a part of this deal, and both of these games are now Epic Store exclusives. For the foreseeable future, that is. But again, as I mentioned, Private Division is a subsidiary of 2K Entertainment, and it seems like one of the up-and-coming games from 2K might be on the Epic Games Store. That with Borderlands 3. Gearbox Software is the company that actually develops these games, and just recently, there's been a few very positive tweets from the CEO of Gearbox towards the Epic Store. In those, he does say, I'm excited to support the Epic Games Store. That was tweeted back in December, but people were still replying to this, and one of the replies just from March 12th does say, I'm worried that's code for an exclusivity deal for some future content/titles. The CEO responds saying, what's wrong with that? A PC is a PC. Who cares which store you get your games from? I'm just curious to learn the mindset. I'm a customer of lots of different PC platforms. Considering there have been a lot of teases around a Borderlands 3, a lot of people are assuming that Borderlands 3 will be published by 2K and it will also be an Epic Game Store exclusive, since the CEO is tweeting out all these things in favor of it. So naturally, that's not confirmed at this point, it is still just a rumor, but taking that together with the two titles from Private Division being Epic Store exclusives, it seems like this is probably a publisher deal of some kind. But again, we don't know if Obsidian was for or against this decision. It also seems like this was probably a very recent decision, because if you actually look at the trailer of The Outer Worlds that came out on December 6th of 2018, towards the end of that trailer, you just see the Steam listing. There's no mention of the Epic Game Store, so at that point, it's likely that this deal hadn't been reached or potentially wasn't even in the talks, considering they only again give that Steam label. You might be wondering, why would a company like Obsidian actually go for this? Why would they be interested in exclusivity with the Epic Store and of course with Microsoft? For a lot of game developers, it seems like with the Epic Game Store, they get a better revenue share of game sales. So naturally, to sell my game on a storefront like Steam, Steam's going to take a cut. Let's say their base cut is 30%, maybe the Epic Game Store is offering me a 20% cut. So then I, as the developer, would get 80% of that revenue. Depending on how many sales of this game you do get, that could translate to millions upon millions of dollars, which could be a really big deal. We don't know the actual specifics of this agreement, and it's likely we never will, but it seems like that's probably one of the big likely factors. But at the same time, why are people so angry about this? There's been a ton of backlash to this situation. You could find it on any of the major places that you've seen the Outer Worlds discussion. Even the official tweet from the Outer Worlds Twitter account that did announce this got less likes than one of the first replies that was condemning it. That's always a pretty good indication that people are unhappy. Although you might be asking yourself, why? Why do people actually care so much that it's going to be on the Epic Game Store? So there's a variety of different factors. I think one of the big ones is people simply don't like losing their freedom of choice. A lot of people have been using the Steam store for a very long time. They have very large libraries of games and they don't want to download or move over to another platform. A lot of people associate the Epic Game Store with Fortnite. There's a pretty big negative sentiment around Fortnite and that kind of community, or even some of the other games on that store. And naturally, people just don't like the idea that this company is basically buying exclusivity. While Epic is seeing exclusivity as a good business decision, a lot of other people are just viewing it as they're taking my favorite game away and putting it on their store only, which isn't necessarily wrong. At the end of the day, the decision really lied on 2K Games or Obsidian, but Epic was the ones who put the offer out there, and I think for that reason they're getting a bunch of the blame. Outside of that, there are several other issues with the platform. It is way newer than Steam, so as a result of that, it has way less features. You can't find reviews, official forums for various games. There's no Steam curator platform. A lot of people criticize the refund policy, the lack of screenshots that are built in. Steam has had years and years to grow and add in new features, and the Epic Game Store is really playing catch up right now. Even though we may see some of those features by the end of this year, at least as of right now, it definitely isn't as feature rich as Steam, and people don't like that. There are also a couple of big controversies around the larger company of Epic Games this year. There was a big data breach with Fortnite, so a lot of people question the security of this store and they don't feel secure putting in their information. I've seen that as a big reason people are protesting the Outer Worlds on that store. But even just last week, there was a story where apparently the Epic Game Store was stealing user data from Steam users and using it on their store. Each of those topics could get full videos, and I'm not going to do that here, but if you want to read more, I will have articles linked down below. And that's really just a brief synopsis as to why people don't like the store. Some people don't like the parent company Tencent, and naturally there are all kinds of different reasons and justifications. The takeaway should be though that people feel pretty strongly about this. There's a lot of backlash around this exclusivity deal with the Outer Worlds and the Epic Game Store. People are also pissed about the Microsoft situation, but just not nearly as much so. Even though it technically is exclusive to Epic and Microsoft, Epic has really been the one buying up game exclusivity as of late, so I think that's why they're getting the butt end of this. In addition, Microsoft just had a ton of good PR as they announced they are bringing the Halo games to PC, but even further, it won't be a Microsoft Store exclusive. The Halo franchise will be coming to Steam, which a lot of people didn't expect and I think really respected Microsoft for. So in the end, the real takeaway is people are really angry. There's a ton of fan and community backlash. You can find numerous posts of people saying they will not be supporting this game, or the game's true release date isn't until 2020 when it comes out on Steam. Granted, granted, this is just a subset of the audience, as it still will be coming out in traditional fashion on consoles. Or even further, you have a bunch of people that probably don't care about all of that and will just buy it on the Epic Game Store. Which, one interesting note about that, Metro Exodus was another recent game to find itself with Epic Game Store exclusivity. You might have followed that story and saw that it also had a ton of backlash. People were very angry that that was a thing. Yet if you actually look at some of the sales numbers, it was recently shared by Epic that Metro Exodus sold a lot of copies, 2.5 times as many as the previous entry in the franchise, and it certainly didn't flop as a result of that PC exclusivity or even some of the bad press around it. Now, one definitely could make the argument that avoiding all of that bad press and actually releasing the game on Steam may have actually given them additional sales, but you also have to think about it from their perspective. How much additional revenue did they generate through the Epic Games deal compared to what they would have made from a Steam deal? Only they have the concrete numbers, and in the end, they might have actually been happy with their decision. The takeaway being that Metro Exodus didn't flop, it didn't get horrible review scores, and overall I think nowadays people look at it as a mostly good game despite the exclusivity on Epic. So yeah, how do you feel about this? I haven't really shared my own opinions because I don't know how to feel. I know downloading different launchers to play different games is basically just a reality nowadays, although at the same time I do see the pretty genuine concerns with the platform itself, some of the security issues as well as just the overall anti-consumer decision. This choice by Epic and acceptance by Obsidian and Private Division is not good for consumers. We have less choice as a result of this, although I am interested to see what this means going forward. I wonder if the Outer Worlds will be looked at in a different light. Will people overall support the game less, or will it just be a blip on the radar? Will people quickly get over this when they see more gameplay or hear more details around this? Will it be a similar fate as to Metro Exodus, where it doesn't actually impact sales all that much, or seemingly didn't? Or with the Outer Worlds being a smaller game to begin with, considering it's only a AA game and not a AAA game, suffer a lot more from this? I'm not sure, but either way, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.